Praise belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has given us the opportunity to come to His house. And as in this heavy rain, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still gave us the opportunity to come to His house. This is a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, those people who come to the house of Allah Azza wa Jal in the darkness of the night, in the difficulty, that Allah Azza wa Jal will grant them Jannatul Firdaus on the Day of Judgment. So we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make us entitled of that, Ameen, inshallah. And we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to accept our ibadah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our shortcomings. Ameen, Ya Rabbil Alameen. In one of the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and Imam Abu Ya'la al-Mawsili has mentioned this narration on the authority of Anas bin Malik radiyallahu anhu. He says, after the battle of Uhud, many Sahaba were martyred, and as we were collecting these Sahaba and burying them, there was a person who was martyred in such a way that he had a rock tied to his stomach due to hunger. And by looking at his stage and dying in such a condition and becoming shaheed in such a condition, a lot of people, they started to say that this person is definitely going into Jannah and there is no barrier between him and his paradise. On this, the Prophet ﷺ said, do not be so sure by looking at the physical appearance of an individual. There can be a possibility that he could have been involved in such type of conversation which can take him away from Jannah. Or there was an opportunity for him to spend and help individuals out, but he took his hand away and he showed miserliness towards that. Now, of course, we have heard so much about the virtues of those who get martyred in the path of Allah and how those people go into Jannah. In this hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he is giving us a very important lesson, that sometimes we can look at an individual and develop a perception in our mind that this will happen to this person because he was so and so, or because he was such and such. But the reality is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there can be that one action of yours which is great, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can elevate, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give you Jannah. And one sin of an individual can also take a person towards hellfire. As in another narration, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that no one should be convinced and happy and be in comfort with the actions that he does. Why? Because even one action can be the means of salvation or destruction of this individual. So what we learn from the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is we try to do whatever actions that we are able to do, but do not think that a sin can be less versus your action. So a person says, so what if I have a bad tongue? So what if I curse, but I do so many other good things? Or so what if I'm involved in this sin, but I do so many other good things? Do not belittle anything that is against the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that one thing that you belittle in your eyes, which is against the orders of Allah, can be the means of anybody's destruction. So this is why a person, he needs to be worried about as his physical action as well as his internal actions. The way he controlled his eyes from committing haram, his hands to commit haram, his transactions to commit haram, his body to commit haram. Similarly, the tongue needs to be controlled. The heart also needs to be controlled. Perception needs to be controlled. Wrong assumption towards individuals, all of that needs to be controlled for a person to be maintained in such a way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants him what he's looking for. Looking at this individual, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, you might see, and then it can be a hypothetical question, or the reality can be behind this, that this individual might be involved in something like this, which the Prophet ﷺ, he is hinting towards. But the lesson that the Prophet ﷺ is giving from this narration is that you have to be mindful of those things that you are considering very little. This fuqaha mentions, al-lisan jirmuhu saghir wa jurmuhu kabir. Fuqaha say that your tongue, it's a very minute and small flesh, but the actions that can be committed by it can be very severe. Al-lisan jirmuhu saghir wa jurmuhu kabir. The flesh is very small, but actions can be committed by it which can be a great sin. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the ability to strengthen ourselves in such a way that we are mindful on our actions as well as our speeches. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. Jazakumullahu khairan. Subhanallahi wa bihamdihi. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.